Yeah, now it's time to talk with the cast and creative team. So let's start with executive producer Jason Richman. Right here. Next up, we have Dex herself, Cobie Smulders. All right, next up, star Michael Ealy. Next up, Camryn Manheim. Now we have executive producer David Bernad. Next up, star Tantoo Cardinal. Next up, Cole Sibus. Now we got Adrian Martinez. And lastly, executive producer Ruben Fleischer. Awesome. Well, thank you guys all for being here. I'm sure it feels good to kind of, something you've been working on for so long, kind of get it out here and get it in front of, you guys have all seen it probably a bunch of times, especially, you guys here, the producing team. But I want to start with kind of a group question. The cast came through the EW Comic-Con suite back in July, and I distinctively remember Michael saying kind of what appealed to him about the show was that he couldn't categorize it. Like, that was really exciting to him, and I found that very interesting. Now, I mean, hopefully, maybe now, this will be a bad question if you can't, but it's been a few months now, you guys have been working a little bit more on it. Maybe in one sentence, if each of you could, we'll go down the line, maybe describe Stumptown in one sentence. I'll let the writers go first, since like that's, The writer. Yeah, the writer.
First, I want to say our brilliant director of the pilot, standing in the back, Griff.
He's being
way
too cool for
give a shout out.
You can tip him on your way out.
If I could just describe it in one word. It's an adventure. It's really an adventure. This has just been such an incredible experience to work with so many talented people, a cast that you just, on balance, you don't see on network television, and to tell the kind of stories and follow, Dex and her journey is just, it's just been a treasure.
Hi. Yeah, you can't do one sentence. I'm sorry, bro. I'm not going to be able to help you with that.
He got like a couple sentences.
Yeah. It is. It is such an unusual show. It's a mixture of action, comedy, and drama, and in each scene, all of those things are being played out. Amazing characters, really cool setting, the city of Portland. Like you just saw, it's sort of nonstop and a lot of fun to watch. That's my long sentence.
Michael, I set you up here since you maybe, I don't know if you still can categorize it, I don't know.
I'm going to give you a run-on sentence. I would say that Stumptown is highly representative of its protagonist, Dex, in that it is extremely scrappy, resourceful, funny, heartfelt, and at the same time has the best soundtrack in the history of television. Period.
It's a good run-on sentence, I like that.
That's a good run-on sentence.
Camryn?
I would say it's about a bunch of misfits who are kind of very loyal and honorable and honest people trying to do the right thing, but they, particularly Dex, is so fucked up, and And we somehow get all swirled into her tornado, and it's not always a bad thing because sometimes when the tornado's done, there's havoc everywhere, but also sometimes really good deeds and good things have become of it. So we kind of go along with the wind and the ride of her twirl.
How about you, David?
I feel like I said everything I want to say.
Then I'm gonna feel bad for Ruben then at the end when he's last and everyone said everything.
No, I think what originally drew us to the graphic novel is just kind of its simplicity in trying to capture the human experience. I think doing it through a lens of positivity. I think every character is trying to do their best, which we were really drawn to, and I think all the characters are kind of three-dimensional, treated as real human beings, which you kind of don't always see on network TV, and we're really kind of proud of that. Yeah.
How about you?
Well, to me, it is that people call it diversity, and it's a bunch of people that I met here and there. You know, you don't normally see them all in the same bunch and at the same party, but it's diversity in the sense that this is a scope that you might find on the street or places that you go to a movie or in a shopping mall or, and for me, I've been kind of lonesome for just a real a look or an experience of people from different worlds all coming together and doing this thing, whatever it might be at the time, and to see how they mix together. Is that one sentence?
I think we allowed some run-on sentences, so that works, yeah. How about you, Cole?
For Stumptown, it feels like action-packed, funniness, sweetness, and loving thing.
There you go. That's the sentence. How about you, Adrian?
It's a good friggin' show.
How about you, Ruben?
For me, I feel like it has a throwback quality to the shows I grew up loving, those classic kind of PI dramas from the 80s and that were fun and funny and it has a nostalgic quality that I love.
David kind of touched on it, but Jason, kind of what for you about this graphic novel that you kind of seemed right for adaptation and kind of made for what you thought would be a great show?
Well, I love detective fiction and I love detective shows. I grew up on them. And what I recognized about page 3 of the novel was that this character didn't exist as a PI on television. It just didn't exist. It was very strange. Why? There's a sort of a flawed female character who isn't very human, wasn't reliant on a male character, always cleaning up his messes, or they're always hinged to, men in these stories. Why did this character not exist? And so I went looking to try and find this character. Well, I found versions of them that were superheroes, or there was all these sort of high concept. They can, see the undead or things like that. But there was no just normal human being doing this job, just trying. And she's so human in so many ways. The characters in this world are so human in so many ways. As the father of a daughter, where's that character that doesn't have a super, doesn't have a superpower. It's just human that you could sort of say, oh, you can relate to. She was so incredibly relatable to me, and there's a thing about her that we sort of developed where. She doesn't always get it right. She fails a lot. She messes up, but when she fails, because there's an honor baked into this character, she fails forward. So she doesn't always hit it immediately, but she's always kind of failing in the right direction. And the other side of it were the complications, the interesting relationship she had with her brother. I'd never seen anything like that. She was suffering from PTSD, and so how we could, build that into storytelling. There's so many elements of the story, and all the rich characters in the world and the ones we invented to sort of fill out the tapestry just seemed completely right and a very fertile ground for storytelling.
Cobie, for you, I'm sure a lot of it has to do with a lot of the things he just listed off, but kind of what for you intrigued you about Dex and getting this opportunity to play her week in and week out?
Yeah, I mean, Jason was very eloquent about it. She is complicated. I think when you decide to do something, over the course of multiple episodes, you really have to enjoy that character and see a lot of opportunity in growth and change. And this is just a woman who's in the middle of that. We meet her, and she's really at this point in her life where she doesn't have any direction. And the idea of playing a woman who has to face some major things, PTSD, addictions, she has to face all these things, which I think takes an enormous amount of strength. And she does it bravely, and she's put in these situations where she's supposed to fight for others, and she's very good at that, but whenever she has to put herself first, it's very difficult for her to do. So I'm just excited to be on an adventure and really get to stay with this character and watch her evolve over time.
Ruben, this show's set in Portland, obviously, it's a big part of the show, but it's not a location that we see often in television. A lot of, New York, LA, Chicago, maybe. Kind of what does Portland add to the story and kind of bring in that makes it obviously such a unique aspect to it?
I think it's the specificity of the place that allows for original storytelling, because Portland has such a clearly defined identity. And so the characters, like even the opening of the show where you have these bad guys that are talking about coffee, it's just like not your typical thugs that you would see in a network television show. So I think the identity of the city was really important to be a component of the show, and that be a character as well in the show. I mean, not only the title of the show, but also the feeling of the place. And I think it's helped distinguish the show in terms of its originality and the general stories that we'll be able to tell.
Yeah, speaking of that, David, kind of what would you say viewers should expect on a weekly basis? Will this be, are we looking at like a case of the week? Obviously there was a big, case that run through the episode here, or is there going to be some kind of ongoing mystery built into it?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. I think what we're really proud of is kind of created a show that has, procedural stories, but they're usually character-driven stories, and each of those stories will kind of illuminate and kind of bring to the surface something Dex is dealing with and some, things the other characters are dealing with. So, like the pilot, you're going to get really good character, good case, comedy, action, good music, all that. Yeah.
Michael, Hoffman, a lot of these cops would probably be turned off or annoyed by this like kind of wannabe PI kind of getting...
Watch it.
Budding PI, is that better? Budding? But obviously Hoffman's kind of like, drawn to her a bit and, kind of intrigued. So why do you think that is? And
she cleans up well. I think it's one of the things that I found interesting about the show in general is that we don't present the female lead as a catch that's looking for love. We go the total opposite way of that, I think. And I think Hoffman's, I don't want to kind of spoil it, but I think Hoffman's interest in Dex is complicated and it's kind of a slow burn, I mean, not that slow, but it's slow.
It's slow.
It's a good slow burn, and I think over the course of various episodes, I know we've done our fair share at this point, and I'm still finding it. Like I'm still finding what is it that is that makes these two really kind of work, and a lot of it is recognizing some of yourself in that person, I think.
Camryn, your character, where I say Michael's character is kind of, drawn to Dex. Your character not so much, at least in the first episode. But kind of what appealed to you about kind of this role in this show to make you obviously want to sign on and play Cosgrove?
Well, I've learned a lot more about my character through the, subsequent scripts that we didn't really get to see so much in the pilot. But what I do know is that she's flawed like everybody else. She's not just a talking head. She's not just a lieutenant. She has a husband and children, and she moved to Portland for a better life. And she came from Philadelphia, where the streets were tough, and thought maybe she'd have a simpler life here, and she was mistaken. And I loved the script the moment I read it. I sometimes have trouble reading action scripts because there's so much exposition and so many stage directions, but it just read like, it was so exciting. I wanted to know what was gonna go down, and I love Dex. And what I love about our relationship is it's not your typical female relationship where I might, feel that she was infringing in my territory. I think that she's dangerous and can compromise investigations, so I'm worried about that. But when I start to realize her heart and her loyalty and her insight is so good and insightful, I think she accepts her a little bit more and more. And I love to see female relationships that aren't just based on competition, but are based on real merit. And that's what I'm really excited for us to experience. And I get to work with these incredible people. It was just a no-brainer. It's I love the show. I'm so proud of it.
Tantoo, your character, obviously, too, we see in this episode has a big kind of adversarial relationship. At least, there's obviously some history there with Dex. What can you say about how that kind of relationship and dynamic will kind of develop as moving forward, and kind of how Sulin will kind of factor in, moving forward?
Well, I guess it has to be kind of intuitive at this point, because I think that Sulin has a lot of respect for Dex. I think that I understand why she is how she is, and I don't know, I think I may have had something to do with it, but I can't be all responsible for it. But I know her well, and I'm in a world where it's important that I trust people, know the people that I can trust. And I've seen her, I've known her for a very long time, and it's because of the luck of the draw that she's not my daughter. And I made that choice, so kind of a political choice, and a choice for my nation. And so she had to go by the wayside. But there she is, as bright as can be, and every once in a while, I really need her to be there. And this is what happened on this day that we saw.
Jason, one of the cast members that wasn't able to be here was Jake Johnson, who plays Gray, and he was obviously, I'm sure, got some laughs from his scenes. What has he brought? I know he was, cast after the original pilot was shot. So, kind of, what has he brought to the show and kind of added? I'm sure some humor to it, but what has he brought?
More than that, he brings a lot of humor. He's incredibly resourceful as an actor, and immediately sort of fit into the tapestry of the show, and heightened it in a really lovely way. And not only that, because what you don't know from this pilot is that he has a really complicated story. He's a guy. I always think characters are more interesting when they're hiding stuff, and everybody is in this show is really hiding something that will come out at some point, and he's hiding something kind of big. And so that'll start to play out in the first 4 or 5 episodes. And what I found was interesting is that, and you would know this from some of the work he's done before, but what he's really gravitated to is that he loves that part of his character. And you can see that when you see these episodes start to develop, and he starts to get under pressure, and you know all these secrets start to come out. It's really kind of fun to watch.
Plus, I feel like he's definitely got a good Portland look. Like I think that. Really
He looks of the place.
Cole, what have you know, there's a few scenes in here between you and Jake, and there's a really, I thought there were some really great scenes, but in that relationship between Ansel and Gray is, you can tell a lot just from the few interactions in it. So what have you liked about kind of working with Jake so far and kind of building that relationship?
I would say like, it is like very interesting. I get to work with Jake Johnson, and I watched New Girl, and I love it. I would say like, Jake is one kind person to hang out with, and me and him got together and talk a long time. After I get to know him, I get really warm up, and I'm ready to work with him, work with one of the cast, work with Cobie Smulders, the Avengers. But she's one of the baddest women.
Getting to work with all your favorites, that's awesome. Adrian, we get to see Tukey, you know, one scene here, we get a little bit of him kind of, little tease, kind of laying the groundwork there. You know, he seems to be kind of, maybe he'll develop into kind of the ear to the street. But what can you say so far about your character and kind of maybe how he'll factor in moving forward?
He needs the likes. Yeah, he needs the likes, particularly from Dex. You know, I think he looks up to her. He's kind of like her guardian angel, you know, when she's kind of like out there, like a loose cannon. He's like looking out for her. And for me, that was the emotional hook for the character, because you have to have something to ground you. And we all have someone that we're looking out for and want to take care of. And you know, Dex used to work for me, for Tukey, and he's looking out for her, he cares for her. So that to me was what got me going.
Yeah. There's some great character moments in here, but kind of the opening scene is so great and really kind of immediately puts you in the world and just kind of intrigues you. Cobie, what was it like to film that?
The car
scene, yeah.
Yeah, it was super intense. We had these 2 actors, and man, we really crushed those guys. We shot the car stuff in Portland, which was really cool. We shot the pilot that you just watched. Half of it was in Vancouver, Canada, and some of it was in Portland. And it was wild. I mean, we had an amazing stunt team, and it was really challenging and fun, really, to try to fit in all that action in that car. I mean, it's right there, you guys. It has 0 backseat. Okay, there's no backseat in that car, and so it was very challenging, but a fun challenge, and just filled with such great comedic moments. And really, I mean, that scene is successful because of the commitment from those 2, because they were really committed to it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's all the time we have. Thanks again for coming out. Thank
you all.
And Cobie mentioned the car, the famous car is right here. You can go take a picture, you can watch, you can get your picture taken with it, so go check that out. Thanks again.